What's a habit of yours that you thought was normal until someone pointed it out?
Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started.
Story 1. I yawn a lot when I get nervous. Didn't notice this until my dad pointed it out. I would always yawn before any big game, public speaking, or job interview. I think people used to get pissed because they would think I was bored and uninterested. Now I try so hard to hide my yawns, but it doesn't always work. Story 2. When I'm in a clothing store, I touch all the clothes to see what they feel like, even if I think it's ugly. Answer: I touch everything. Walking down the street, I'll tap light poles with my fingernail. I put the back of my hand towards walls and run all 5 nails against it as I walk by. When I worked in a warehouse and there was some downtime, I just wander around tapping everything. I'm a very tactile person in general, and that extends to how I show affection. Some people show they care by giving compliments, others giving gifts. I show I care by touching you. Hugs, kisses, cuddles. If there's contact, I fudge love it. Story 3. I audibly sigh when I sit down. I never even realized this until about a year ago when a roommate pointed it out. Turns out my father is a sigh sitter too. Story 4. I rub my feet together or rub one on my bed when I lay down. I also bounce my leg up and down a lot when I'm sitting. It's all kind of uncontrollable, and I happen to notice it only when someone asks me to stop or when I've been doing it for a while. Not quite sure why I do it, but it feels good to do it. I try not to do it when I'm in bed with my fiancé or when I'm sitting on a bench with other people because it might disturb them. Sure as hell annoyed my mom when I was growing up. Story 5. Constantly cracking and stretching my limbs to relieve pain. First time it was pointed out as really freaky was in my freshman year, when I hyperextended my leg to the point that it looked broken. I freaked out the girl next to me in the gym so bad, she swore really loudly. Then everyone wanted to see me do it, and I was baffled that no one else could do it. Anyways, turns out I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a genetic disorder that affects the collagen production in my body, making me very stretchy. Story 6. Apparently, I sleep weird. I usually sleep completely under the covers, head and all, with my arms kind of splayed over my head face. Answer: same. Aside from covering myself with my blanket or covers from head to toe, I also cover my face or head with a second pillow. I also sleep on my side, and I must face the right side of the bed. Facing the left just doesn't work for me. This is why I don't usually sleep that well on family vacations when we're staying in a hotel. I usually have to share a bed with my brother, so I can't really move the blankets or covers around to my preference, and I only have one pillow to use. Story 7. When I'm in a car, I'll plug the seatbelt in, tug on it, then lean towards the closest door. A friend of mine pointed it out after years of seeing me do it. I got in a bad car accident a month before my 18th birthday, where the seatbelt popped out of the latch and nearly sent me through the windshield, which caused me to do this. Answer: a car accident definitely changes you. I was in a very bad accident. The car rolled over like 3 times. I only survived because I was wearing the seatbelt. My side it received the most impact when we finally hit the asphalt, and everyone that saw the car pointed out how I would be dead if I wasn't wearing the seatbelt. And I know this is how everyone should be, but I don't even start the engine if I'm not wearing the seatbelt. No matter if I'm only moving my car from one side of the garage to the other, it's automatic for me now, and I won't move an inch if I have a passenger that's not wearing the seatbelt. Story 8. I was not aware of it, but when I get to the point where I want to end a conversation, I place the palms of my hands on the underside of the opposite arms and slide from elbow to palm. Not intentional. SOO pointed it out. I said, and that is why I will never play poker. Story 9. I always naturally avoided everything lavender. Tea, cupcakes, body wash, shampoo, and incense. Like I would go out of my way to avoid it without thinking. Recently, a friend pointed it out and I thought, fudge it, I should try some lavender shoot. I don't know why I don't like it anyhow. Turns out I'm very allergic and swell a lot if I come in contact with anything lavender. Story 10. Apparently, I slam car door unusually hard. Had a coworker pull me aside and tell me that another coworker, who I frequently got rides with, had mentioned it to her, but didn't want to say anything. I've tried to be less forceful with my car door closing since then. I think I just want to be sure it closes properly, so I shut it hard. Story 11. Growing up in Pennsylvania, I always thought it was normal, correct grammar, to drop the to be from a verb in the passive voice, i.e., the car needs washed versus the car needs to be washed. Some friends finally pointed it out to me when I was in college, and it kind of blew my mind. It was slightly embarrassing, but today I can't stop hearing it whenever I go home to visit family. Story 12. I never really noticed it, but I never make eye contact when I'm talking to someone. It's not like a nervous thing, I just never do it. So I really have to focus if I'm at a job interview or another important event. Answer: I had 2 people point that out in my life, and it was weird that it was so few. One was the only half-assed date I had in high school. Took a girl to the mall food court, and while we're eating, she points it out. The other was a boss when I was in my 30s. Later, I found the symptoms of being on the autism spectrum, and that one stood out to me, along with quite a few others. I got tested, and turns out I'm on the spectrum. For me, if you drew a graph of my eye contact, it would look like a U. For people I don't know well, and I'm interacting with just a little, I can usually do an okay job of looking normal. For people I know well, close family members, I can make normal eye contact. It's everyone else in the middle that I know a little and interact with more than a few minutes that it's really difficult. Story 13. I used to put an R in the word vehicle, so it sounded like vehicle. That was a fun one to learn from a group of friends. Story 14. A friend of mine, her mom is German, but they only spoke English at home, so my friend never learnt German. It wasn't until I pointed out to her that she was using entire wrong words for a couple of random things. I guess her mom didn't know the English for, e.g., washcloth, and just always referred to it in German, so my friend never knew that it wasn't called a waschlappen. She just assumed she was speaking English. Edit: yes, I meant entirely, not attire. Autocorrect. Answer: this used to happen to me a lot. We're a Punjabi family, but I never learned to speak the language in proper depth since we grew up in a completely English area. I only spoke English at home, but they would speak a complete mixture, so I can understand it fine. For me, it was a bit different. There were words which I thought were Punjabi that I never learned the English for, but they actually were English all along. Example: me circa 15. You know that thing that you drain tea bags and stuff out with? It's like a metal spoon with mesh on the end. Friend: a sieve? Me: how the fudge do you know Punjabi? Story 15. I say thank you and you're welcome to machines like ATMs, fuel pumps, and my Google Home when they thank me for using them. I also say goodbye to my apartment when I leave for work. Now that I'm typing it out, I realize how weird that is. Still gonna do it though because it seems polite. Edit: this seems to be way more common than I thought. Also, TIL, I'm safe from the robot uprising. I shall learn their ways and save as many of you as I can. Story 16. I never figured out how to properly drink fluids. When I drink something, I keep the fluid in my cheeks like a chipmunk, then swallow it. It took one of my friends pointing it out to me to realize that it wasn't normal. I can't chug stuff because it always makes me gag and choke, so that's how I've always tipsy things. Taking pills sucks. Answer: hi. I'm a speech pathologist, and I mostly evaluate and treat swallow disorders. If you tuck your chin down to your chest when you swallow, it really helps everything go down your esophagus instead of your trachea. I do this to take pills. It also wouldn't hurt to get a modified barium swallow study. It's like a video x-ray of your swallow. Holding the liquid in your cheeks is a way of compensating for a swallow disorder. Gagging when you chug is an indication of a swallow disorder. It's worth mentioning to your doctor. Feel free to message me if you have any questions. Edit 1. New onset difficulty swallowing is a major red flag. Go to the ER immediately. Even a young person can have a stroke. Edit 2. Thank you for my first gold kind stranger. Edit 3. Wow, there are a lot of questions here. I want to first be clear and say please see a medical doctor about any kind of swallowing concerns you have. If you've messaged me with a question because you're worried, that means it's time for a doctor's appointment. Tucking your chin down helps the majority of people, but it can make it worse for others. For this reason, please see a doctor and/or speech therapist who can meet you in person and read your case history. I wish I could take you all on, but I'm worried I'll do more harm than good since I'm only hearing little snapshots on Reddit. Over the next few days, I'll look through your messages and see if there's any information I can point your way. Smile. Story 17. Not a habit, but up until 5th grade, I thought seeing things as blurry was normal. I had no idea people saw the leaves on trees. It was trippy walking out of the glasses place for the first time. Answer: I had a fellow student who got glasses around the same age as you. Her mind was blown when she realized how everyone else saw the world. I couldn't believe how someone could not notice, but it seems to happen regularly, or happened, as now most children are tested. As like you described, the person who can't see does simply not know what it should be. Story 18. Apologizing for everything. I thought I was being polite and normal until a friend pointed it out and said how annoying it was. Story 19. When I am listening to what you are saying, I lean forward and point my good ear toward you. I am hard of hearing because of an accident. People either think I am not paying attention because I am not looking them in the eye, or they think I am autistic. I got called out on this by my boss at work. Something about being trustworthy and respectful, blah, blah. I couldn't understand what he was saying because he made me look him in the eye instead of pointing my ear at him. Story 20. Such is my excitement when receiving food from a waiter. I sing, yum, 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 under my breath as they put it down in front of me. Didn't realize it was weird until my partner pointed it out while barely containing his laughter. Story 21. I sniff every new thing I eat or drink. Doesn't matter if it's soup, pasta, beer, sandwich. If I've never eaten it before, it's getting sniffed. Didn't even realize I did it until my boyfriend pointed it out. Story 22. Scratching my female body part when itchy in public. I remember doing this at a friend's house at her birthday party when I was maybe 9 years old and her mom saw me do this. She asked if I had to go to the bathroom and I was too embarrassed to tell her why I was touching my crotch. From then on, I only scratched it in public. Edit. I meant to say scratch in private. I'll go fudge myself in public now. Story 23. I store my pajamas under my pillow for safekeeping until the next night. Didn't know this wasn't common practice until a friend pointed it out. Story 24. I hum La Cucaracha to myself when I get anxiety. Never realized I did this and my BF pointed it out last year. Am a white girl IDKY. Edit. Grew up with little Hispanic influence, hence white girl comment. Story 25. I thought it was normal to have a nightcap every night. My mom and dad would take 2 shots of whiskey each before bedtime, and I started doing the same from about age 15. It was only when I was about 37 and had my first girlfriend that I did this in front of her 2 nights in a row, and she was weirded out the second night and told me it wasn't normal to take shots every night. Story 26. Staring blankly while holding still for minutes at a time. I just daydream, get deep in thought a lot. It's creeped a lot of people out though. Answer. I do this. One day I was checking out at a store and I noticed the checker had a name tag Rose. Started thinking about Titanic, then Catholic names, then flowers. I come around and the checker was kinda brusque with me, kinda cold. Halfway out to the car, I realized I was staring at her chest for who knows how long, but I wasn't. I was looking at the name tag on her chest. Not a single pervy thought. I felt so bad. I haven't been back to that store. Story 27. When I was a hairstyling student, my classmates eventually pointed out that when I'm focused on doing hair, my tongue sticks out of my mouth. Picture a dog or cat when their mouth is closed but their tongue is poking out, and I have a very angry, intense expression on my face. However, when I'm cutting hair, my lips are curled in towards my mouth over my teeth, and my mouth moves open and closed in sync with the scissors. Just realized that this doesn't quite fit the question because I wasn't aware that I was doing it before it was pointed out. But I'm going to post it anyway since I already typed it out. Story 28. I live alone. The last thing I do every night as I lock the door is turn to my cat and say, "I've locked the door. Now we won't be takedown in our sleep." I say it so when I'm lying in bed and can't remember whether or not I locked the door, I can remember looking at my cat and saying that instead of having to get up and check. I said it while my mother was visiting, and she looked at me like I just said I habitually kick puppies. Edit. Added cat tax. Story 29. I pronounced pillow as pello for a really long time. Some coworkers gave me shoot when they figured it out, and I try to say it correctly, but my brain will often short-circuit and go back to pello. Edit. For those wondering, I'm Australian with a Queensland accent. Story 30. I used to enter my car head first instead of butt first. It feels more natural to me, but I switched the habit when someone pointed out how weird it is. Story 31. My twin brother and I showered together until 5th grade. We didn't think it was weird until our friend asked us one day if we had just taken a shower together. At the time, it seemed completely normal, but it's very obvious now how weird that was. Story 32. Standing while pooping. Sort of, because it wasn't me. I accidentally opened the bathroom door of a friend doing this. He thought it was normal because his mom made him do it like that. He thought everyone did it that way, and in movies and on TV, the only reason they sat was because they were tired of taking too many shots. Story 33. My former coworkers used to point out and laugh about how I chose to eat on my own outside of the store, even in cold weather we worked at instead of eating in the employee lounge. It's not that I thought I was better than them. I just disliked that small and dark room. I also wanted to be by myself for the 30 minutes I got from my lunch break. Whenever I had to have lunch in the lounge, I always had coworkers, customers asking me questions, and I wasn't able to fully relax. Story 34. Daydreaming and or zoning out. When I was a kid, I'd get odd looks from my classmates and didn't understand what was weird or different about what I was doing. Sometimes they'd just give me a funny look that I'd see in my periphery, or they'd kind of laugh and give each other looks. I don't know what they thought I was doing. Most of the time, I'm just thinking really intently, or just letting my eyes kind of rest, either hyper-focusing on something or letting my focus blur. I only discovered how it might be kind of weird to other people when I was zoning out one day during lunch. And when I came back, I realized I was accidentally staring down this poor girl across the room who was mouthing, "What?" at me while looking alarmed. Story 35. I was 16 by the time someone pointed out I was standing wrong. I stand on the inside of my foot, big toe down to heel. It affects my entire weight distribution. Have to keep my shoulders hunched and neck curved forward for balance. My default stance is feet at opposite 45-degree angles from each other, but I can stand perfectly fine at 90 degrees. I'm also more comfortable sitting on my back instead of my rear. I'm gonna be a train wreck at 60 if I make it. Edit. Fine, Reddit, mum. I'll go to the darn doctor. Get off my back. Edit 2. People keep asking how I sit on my back. Here's the answer. Sorry, being double editing scum. Story 36. Complaining. Would do it all the time over the littlest of stuff. One day in 7th grade, after being annoyed by some kids skipping the lunch line, I went back to my table and started to complain and whine. My friend made a backhand comment about it, and instead of saying or doing anything, I was just totally shocked. I realized right there how much I actually complained of just about anything. It didn't take me long once I went home or visited my grandparents to see who I got it from. Changing that habit was slow, but it really has made my life way more positive. Story 37. Whenever I have a meal, I always eat one food first and then go to another food. Like, if I had stew, I'd eat the beef parts first, then potato. Story 38. My tendency to nod and say, yeah, or mm-hmm, as someone is speaking. I thought it was encouraging, but apparently people think it's rude. Answer. I will venture to guess that it's the frequency of your POC encouragement that matters, as well as eye contact. If it's too frequently, it may seem like you're impatient. If your eyes are off somewhere else at the same time, it may seem like you're disinterested. Constant eye contact would likely give too much intensity, like overly attached girlfriend. Story 39. Constantly tapping away at basically any surface. It dawned on me when I was tapping away at the dinner table with some friends, and one of them decided to glare at me until I stopped. Subtle approach. Still tapping to this day. Story 40. I have an odd tick where I repeat my words and sentences after I say them. Didn't even realize I did it until someone pointed it out. Story 41. Not all the time, but apparently I do it a lot with Starbucks. Instead of picking the cup up like a human, I pick it up from the top like a claw machine and drink it that way. I think because I drink it often when I'm driving, and I'm not going to take my eyes off the road to see where to grab it when I can just lift it by the top. Story 42. I tend to sort of emulate the people I'm around, like the way that they talk and some of their mannerisms. I think I do this because I'm mostly introverted, and when I'm talking to people I don't know that well, I'm not really all there. I'm just trying to get through the interaction and get back to being alone. As I've gotten older and generally become a more confident human, this has lessened because I have stopped caring much about what anyone thinks about me. But it still sometimes happens when I'm not sure about a person, but I kind of like them. Story 43. If I enjoy the food I'm eating, I hum while I eat it. I'm never aware of this. I'm only ever told if I'm doing or that I was. My son does it too. Story 44. I didn't know I had a frontal lisp until the 9th grade when my friends would mock it, and I asked what the hell they were doing. Yeah, went home and cried to my mom and did literally 3 sessions of speech therapy. It still comes out when I'm tired or flustered, but for the most part, I say it correctly. Story 45. Giving too many compliments. I thought I was being kind, but then people pointed out how it's not as genuine when you're saying them, just to say them, you know? Story 46. Whenever I eat popcorn, I put a handful in front of my face and stick my tongue out to pick it up and slip it into my mouth. Story 47. I have excoriation disorder and didn't realize it wasn't normal until my friend's little sister pointed out that my hands were all torn up when I was in about 7th grade. I can't stop, so now I just try to hide my hands when I do it. The worst is when I'm fixated on my toes because that's pretty noticeable if you're picking at your feet. Answer: I used to rip the top layer of skin on my fingertips and would constantly rip too deep and end up hitting the dreaded red patches where the skin is so tender it just stings constantly. I used to do it in middle school, and once in class I was ripping at my fingers. I didn't realize how many layers deep I was in my skin and how much I was bleeding until my teacher questioned the blood all over my desk and finger. Good thing I was one of the kids who everyone was cool with, despite not having any close friends, so thankfully, no one made fun of me for it. My pointer finger was always the easiest to pick, so now almost 7 years after I've stopped, my pointer finger's skin is still hard and calloused. After I realized having band-aids around all my fingers looked weird and more people questioned me, I moved on to my feet, especially my big toes. I will literally dig safety pins underneath the calluses in my toes, rip my skin up so I have an edge to peel and just go to town peeling. Now the calluses are so big if I don't pick at them they start to really hurt, but I always get carried away and rip at the calluses until I reach the red tender skin, which also kind of hurts. It's a viscous cycle and so hard to explain anyone who doesn't have compulsions why you have to do it. Story 48. Wearing pajamas at home if you're not going anywhere. Apparently people actually change into normal clothing even if they're not going anywhere. What the fudge kind of torture is that? Half the time I don't even have pants on in my house, let alone an outfit. Let me be comfy in peace. Answer: my girlfriend thought it was odd I didn't shower after getting up if we weren't doing anything on a lazy Sunday. She was raised to be very clean and tidy and pretty much never slept in as she could always be doing something. I learned her the Sunday sloth life is glorious, and I got her some pajama pants that have fries and hamburgers on them. Not sure if I've created a monster, but it's been fun so far. Story 49. Shutting the toilet lid before flushing. I think it's gross to flush it when it's open because particles fly into the air and onto towels, toothbrush, etc. Apparently I'm weird for that. Edit. Thank you all for pointing out Mythbusters has disproved this and possibly showed that it makes it worse. I am aware we are covered in bacteria inside and out, all different gross kinds. One of my favorite facts is that there are more bacteria cells outside of us than human cells. Shutting the lid just makes me feel better, haha. Also, some have asked who sees me doing this. Mostly close friends who come over and use the bathroom after me, or I will do it at their house, and they will notice the lid being down when they usually leave it up. That, plus I am very open about bodily functions. Not in a stinky or invasive way, but basically have no problem talking about discussing it. Thanks for all the comments. Story 50. Eating the shell of shrimp with the rest of the shrimp. My sister convinced me it was extra calcium when I was like 6, and I believed her that it was entirely edible up until a few years back at Red Lobster with my friends, where I got shat on by like 4 people at once, LOLLLL. Story 51. People think it's weird that when I'm taking a pill, I take a mouthful of water first, then pop the pill and swallow. I do this so there's less risk of the pill getting stuck in my throat. Story 52. When I'm concentrating really hard, I stick my tongue out. Apparently I've done it since I was a kid. Never realized I was doing it until my sister pointed out that my son does it too. Now every once in a while I'll break my concentration by realizing I'm doing it. Story 53. I can't sit with both feet on the ground. When I sit down, I either put my legs up on the nearest chair or small table, or sit cross-legged on my chair. If I absolutely have to sit, normally, I will either have to cross my legs or have my toes curled under my feet. I don't think I've ever sat with just my feet straight on the ground for longer than a minute or so. Story 54. Growing up, my dad taught me to call it roast beast instead of roast beef. Realized it sounded wrong saying wildebeef. I've learned to correct myself now. Story 55. Referring to highways, freeways as the 90, the 405. A coworker straight up yelled at me one day, "It's called I-90. Any highway or freeway, I always throw the in front of it. Don't do it for anything below about 60 miles per hour, I guess." Story 56. Not me, but I had this classmate that would throw away his toilet paper in a garbage bin after wiping, as opposed to flushing it down the toilet. I found this out one day when I went to use the restroom, and I smelled the pungent odor of straight jerk sweat. This was because the bin was in direct contact with the sunlight, and when I confronted him about it, he was initially confused because he thought the TP would have clogged the drains. Story 57. I think I speak for all Michiganders when I say "ope" all the time. Had a friend from Illinois point this out in college, and I've been hyper-aware ever since. Edit. Ope? I was always told the ope is a very Michigan-specific way to say ops and o, and that people in other states think it's funny. Now, I know people around the world ope, and we're all just human beings oping around this rock. Story 58. Mostly my anxious thoughts. I didn't realize what I actually have is social and generalized anxiety, nor did I realize that most people do not overthink things to anywhere near the extent that I do, let alone other dudes. Story 59. Bursting into song when someone uses a song lyric. My whole family does it. How could I not think it was normal? Story 60. I used to tap my fingers in a pattern. I'd make two angled lines connected at one end like an acute angle. Bottom, point, top, top, point, bottom. In my head, I was counting 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Each pass up and down would add another imaginary layer to the angle. If I messed up or if I wanted to stop, I would erase the stack of lines by sweeping them away in my head. I'd make a little huff and often shake my head when I whooshed them away too. I didn't know this was a tic or that it was abnormal. Most of the time, I wasn't even thinking about it when I did it. It just sort of became something that helped me calm down when I was stressed or anxious. Then at the lunch table one day, I was into it while eating my crappy cardboard pizza. My two friends at the time were eating with me and we were chatting about something or other to do with boys. Then one of them suddenly went, "Why the fudge do you always do that? Are you autistic?" I didn't realize I was doing it, so I didn't know what she meant until she explained. She and my other friend went on to tell me how much it had been bothering them that I was always doing that. The little head shakes and huffs and taps freaked them out, but they never said anything because I was cool otherwise, or so they said. I sort of freaked out about it. I felt like an android who thought they were a human until an injury revealed their wires and metal bones. The three of us didn't talk about it again, but it stayed with me. I became extremely conscious of the habit and started actively working to fix it. It took 2 years, a book called How to Break a Habit in 72 Days, and a lot of tears to break, but I did it. I didn't even know it was OCD brought on by generalized anxiety brought on by childhood trauma until my psychiatrist diagnosed me at 24. So now I'm OCD in recession. Who knew? TL, DR. I tapped my fingers. All my friends asked, WTF, whoops, I'm OCD. Edit 2. So many people replied explaining similar tics. I wish I wasn't running to get to work, or I'd take the time to reply to each of you individually. I actually will do that when I get to my lunch break. I'll quickly paraphrase my psychiatrist here. This type of compulsion is common, but still difficult to stop. When you feel like the world around you isn't within your control, the tapping and counting may be what your mind creates to take that control back. You get to erase it when it's wrong, and it's satisfying when it's right. That's part of the reason it's so hard to stop, even when you know it's happening. Story 61. My mom is from Japan, so I guess I picked up making weird small noises. I go, I don't know how to put the sound into a word. To signify I'm listening, and I guess I make small, noises and affirmation in place of words. I never knew I did this until someone in high school asked, "Why do you make Furby noises?" And now every time I catch myself doing it, I feel like a darn weeb. Edit. To clarify, is a casual yes in Japanese. Many people have already pointed this out, and I use it when actually speaking Japanese, but I don't make a clear sound when speaking in English. I make like a half-ass similar sound, so I tend to confuse people, even the ones who are used to hearing it because of anime. I've pretty much kicked the habit though, as far as I'm aware. The active listening noises are still alive and well though. Haha. I don't know how to show people I'm listening without them. Story 62. I thought my eye movement was typical until I got called shifty eyes. Combined with my constant finger and foot tapping, I probably come across as a junkie or really suspicious. Story 63. Wiping my jerk standing up. My friend looked really weird at me and said, WTF. Then I was like, what do you mean? Do you sit down and wipe or what? Which to my surprise, all of my friends do. Is it me who's weird or what? Edit. Grammar note. To the people asking why the fudge my friends watch me poo, it was because of a summer trip with some friends where we only had one toilet. So while someone's in the shower, another guy could take a shoot like I did. And then he noticed I stood up to wipe my jerk. And to the people asking how, they bend forward and puts their hand around their waist with the toilet paper. I'm just thinking, it must be nasty to hit the seat with my hand, as I'm sure they do. Answer. I used to stand and wipe. Then I realized that when sitting, your jerk cheeks have a better spread. It makes it easier to wipe and really get in there. Plus, you don't have to stand. I think people who are worried about touching the water don't realize that when you wipe sitting, you lean forward a bit and your hand goes behind you, not under your junk towards your jerk, in which case I could imagine touching the water. Story 64. I let my ice cream melt and eat it like soup. It wasn't until I saw a Modern Family episode where someone does it and it's considered to be weird. I love my ice cream soup. Story 65. Constantly walking everywhere with my head down. It's not that I thought it was normal. I just didn't think about it at all. One day somebody asked me if I was sad, and when I asked why, they said, "Because of the way you were walking, staring at the ground like that." I try to look up more now, but it's such a long-standing habit that I still don't think about it much. Story 66. I love putting a slice of cake in a bowl and pouring milk on top of it. Everyone looks grossed out when they see it or I tell them. But once I convince them to try it, their minds are blown. It's so good. Story 67. Oops, I'm late to the punch, but tapping on the bottom of soda cans with a fingernail before opening them. My dad always did this, and he claimed that it settled the bubbles and prevented cans from exploding when opened. You know, like when you shake one up before opening it and it sprays everywhere. So I picked up the habit of doing it before opening any can filled with a fizzy drink. Then, one time I did it in front of some colleagues, and they freaked out, claiming that I was a smoker. Well, my dad is a smoker, so that explains where the habit comes from. Story 68. Putting sauce in a bowl of spaghetti instead of in the pot. A family friend of my roommates watched me cook and pointed it out. I told them that's the way I've always done it. Put spaghetti in bowl, get pasta sauce, pour in, and mix. They shot me a weird face. Story 69. You know how in cartoons when they eat chicken or whatever, they will clear it out and left nothing but the bones? Well, I do that. Every single one of my friends don't do that. They find it weird cause I would even eat the soft bony part too. Said I'm like a cartoon character. LOL. Story 70. While eating warm food, if it can be flattened, it gets flattened. Squish, squish, squish. Scoop of rice, puck of rice, mound of mashed potatoes, latke. Story 71. I have somehow gotten in the habit of saying, "Ta, thanks." I notice when I do it now and feel like a dickhead, but it's just so ingrained. Story 72. When saluting the flag or national anthem, we were taught to put our hand over our heart. In my kid logic, my heart was under my left nipple, right? So soon I turned into a woman, and early in the 9th grade, a friend had to explain to me that it wasn't normal to hold your boob during the Pledge of Allegiance. Story 73. Rumbling my ears. I thought everyone could do it, but it turns out not everyone can control their tympanic muscle. Rear rumblers assemble. Story 74. Always tapping the accelerator. I've even learned how to keep the speed steady without doing it, but it feels super uncomfortable and unnatural to me. My foot is never that still in that position. Edit. Never admit even the slightest flaw on this website, LOL. I've been driving for about 10 years and no, I've never had engine problems, transmission problems, made anyone throw up or had difficulty staying ahead of cars I pass. Remember that it took me a long time to realize this was happening. Only some passengers even feel it. Calm down with the pitchforks, you little monsters. Story 75. My coworkers pointed out the other day how much I sigh and say fudge sake if something is wrong. Usually it's the most minor thing, like opening the wrong document, hitting reply on the wrong email. They all thought it was funny though. Story 76. I have odor color synesthesia. For years I thought everybody has that, and it's perfectly normal. After years when I first said, "Your perfume has a nice orange," to my girlfriend, everybody is terrified and said, "What the hell?" Then I figured out that sensing smells as colors, not normal. Story 77. Anger at questions. Thought it was normal for people to just get angry when people ask too many questions, but apparently not. Story 78. A friend told me that I was weird for chewing on ice whenever I was done with a drink. I knew not everybody does it, but apparently this is not very common. Story 79. I eat European style, with the fork in the left hand and the knife in the right, never switching the fork back. It's how our parents taught us. I didn't know it was weird in the US until my grandmother had a dinner table meltdown about it and tried to force us to shove our peas around the plate the right way. I had a lisp until I went away to camp for the first time, and the kids in my cabin teased me about it. Before that, I had no idea. Took me a couple days to fix it. Nothing that required therapy. I fall asleep easier in child's pose, folded forward over my knees. I never thought this was normal necessarily, but adults who have bunked with me say it's creepy. I don't stay frozen like that all night or anything. Can't say I get it. Story 80. Talking to myself. Apparently people don't do this. So walking in hallways saying things like, "Where was I going again? Oh yes, this way." I got lost, ha ha, is abnormal. But it's fun for me and I can't stop. LOL. Edit. My first gold. I knew saying something I love about myself would bring me this beloved gold. Thank you, Reddit human, for such. This just made me love myself even more. Edit 02. Reading all the comments are lighting my heart. This is something I am so insecure about. Love y'all. Thanks for sharing y'all inputs. Story 81. In my native country, hookup means meet up, i.e., hey man, let's hook up for lunch next week. After using that expression 101 times after I moved to the US, my G-friend just recently told me it means have intimacy. Story 82. This is something I only realized like last week. I am from Germany, and as some may know, the German language has a lot of dialects. Well, so in the part of Germany where I am from, you will always say a friend's name with an article, e.g., wie geht es dem Peter? How is the Peter? I thought this was completely normal, and I continued referring to friends like that even after I moved to another part of Germany, where you don't use an article in front of a name. So only recently it got pointed out to me that I must sound like an idiot to my new friends in this other part of Germany. Story 83. Not me, but I have a buddy that eats strawberries, with the leaves still on. He did it at a breakfast place we went to, and he thought it was normal. What a madman. Story 84. Adding the mixes in the instant cup noodles, and then adding water that will be used to cook the noodles. So I drain the hot water along with the mixes, essentially draining all the flavors. I always thought that they all tasted bland. Would have been doing this for all my life until my girlfriend caught me. Story 85. My wife always orders off menu. It drives me insane. Can I have this pizza but no ham? Can I have chicken instead? And with a couple of mushrooms too. Thanks. It's like a compulsion. I love her dearly, but sometimes I just want to walk out of the restaurant. Story 86. Singing in public. My girlfriend says, only your family does that, when I pointed out that my sisters do it too. One day I should pay a flash mob to join me in song while shopping just to fudge with her. Story 87. Macaroni and cheese with ketchup. Myself and all of my siblings do this. I never thought anything of it until high school, when I forgot my lunch at home and had to eat cafeteria food. People lost their shoot. Story 88. I always brush my teeth with mouth wide open and with the toothpaste falling out. I thought it was normal until my boyfriend pointed out that it's weird. Story 89. I let my cereal get soggy before I eat it. I never realized it was weird until I got to college and my friends would give me shoot for doing it. Answer. This past spring, I ran out of oatmeal, which I have for breakfast every day, just before my campus convenience store closed for spring break. They didn't have any oatmeal left, but they did have this Kashi cereal that was basically whole grain mini wheats. I figured that was an acceptable substitute, but I couldn't just eat it like normal cereal. Every morning, I would add almond milk, stick it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes, and mush everything up. It was pretty good. Story 90. Twiddling my fingers when I walk in front of a lot of people. I thought it was normal, but apparently it's a sign of social anxiety. Story 91. I don't really like using spoons. Forks are superior. I'll use spoons begrudgingly for cereal and ice cream, but in my heart, I know forks are the true kings of the silverware drawer. My ex brought it up once after she had noticed I would always swap out the spoon for a fork during the nights she cooked dinner and brought the dishes out for us. I think I might have hurt her feelings somehow by doing that. But yeah, that made me realize that I never use spoons. I had never actually thought about it before. Story 92. I have a happy wiggle, as in, every time something makes me happy, good food, good news, etc., I do a little full-body wiggle. I never realized it until I was reading an email in my phone one day, which had some positive info in it. My SO looked up and asked what was making me so happy. I thought he was some kind of clairvoyant until he said, "You're doing your happy wiggle." Story 93. One of my friends watches the ending credits of movies and counts how many people are named Ian. He vehemently swears that it isn't weird and that I'm overreacting when I said it wasn't normal because his dad does it as well, apparently. Story 94. Biting the insides of my cheeks. I'm also a nail biter, but I do that in private. The cheek thing is so habitual now, and I always think I'm being subtle, but then I catch a glimpse of my reflection and see my mouth on the other side of my face as I try to bite. Story 95. Apparently, I never learned how to hold a fork properly. I hold it like a shovel. Also means I eat food way too fast. I had no idea until my girlfriend pointed it out. I then eliminated her and buried her. All that shoveling came in useful for practice. No one can take shovel fork from me. No one. Story 96. I used to sleep with the radio on, Now I've switched to YouTube and podcasts. Even as a little kid, I had a cassette player on at night. I didn't realize it was weird until my girlfriend asked if I was going to take my headphones out before going to bed. Story 97. Not mine, but I know this weird girl who has one of the most common last names in Mexico, which pretty much means her family is huge. She's got a heck of a lot of uncles and aunts, and every day they call each other on the phone and speak about what they've done. She even has some family members out of the country, and they also speak to each other on the phone. I guess her family spends a long time near it. When she told me about this, I mentioned how weird it was and asked her what they even talked about. She was surprised that I didn't regularly speak to my family members. I answered, "We can mostly communicate through messages just to keep each other up to date, but that we don't find the need to do it very often." It seems before that she thought every other person speaks to every member of their families on the phone on a daily basis. Story 98. When I eat a meal, I eat the vegetables first, starting with ones I like the least, and eat the meat last. I didn't even realize I was doing this till I was invited to dinner at a girlfriend's house, and she thought I was avoiding the chicken because I didn't like it. Story 99. Laughing. More specifically, the ways I laugh. Or laughed. My laugh has changed throughout the years. I had my own laugh until around 5th grade when I adopted the laughter of a friend of mine. Then I had this wide-open, hearty, har-har type of laugh during middle school. Then during senior year of high school, I slowly adopted the laugh of my future prom date. She would always snort. It was the cutest thing. I look back at my life and realize when I'm really truly laughing with tears coming out my eyes, I silently laugh, and it looks like I'm spasming. People who aren't used to it get worried. Story 100. If my mom eats something with colors, be it M&Ms, Apple Jacks, Fruit Loops, whatever, she eats them one color at a time. And if you ask for one, she'll hand you whatever she's eating at that moment. So if you want a red Skittle, but she's eating green, you get green. Wait till she's on red. Story 101. When I eat those ice creams on a stick that have a layer of chocolate over, I like to eat the chocolate all over and then to start eating the actual ice cream. Mom says it's weird. Story 102. The volume on my car radio has to be a multiple of 5. So 5, 10, 15. However, the TV volume just has to be an even number. It's the only neurotic feature I have, so I don't think I need help. Story 103. Microwaving milk and adding the hot chocolate mix pack after. That's how I always thought you were supposed to do it until all my friends and classmates looked at me like I was a weirdo doing that way. Edit. I feel vindicated. Thanks, Reddit. Story 104. My fiancé's entire family refer to pillows as head pillows. Nobody had apparently picked them up on this until I called them out on it a few years ago. Now I take the piss and ask if they would like me to take my feet shoes off, or whether we need our body coats. Story 105. I have a whole shelf of notebooks on my bookcase that span from age 15 to 28. They cover my thoughts, ideas, bits of stories, songs, drawings, diagrams, maps, lists, etc. I thought everyone had a private world that they documented. Guess not. Story 106. Happily enjoy kiwi fruit with unpeeled. I always thought it added needed texture. My current co-workers discovered this out and let me know I was not supposed to eat the fur. Story 107. For the longest time, I always used to wipe my arse after a shoot standing up. Only in the last month or so, my girlfriend informed me everyone wipes while still sitting down. Checked with friends and turns out I'm the weird one. Story 108. Crossing the road, regardless of the lights when there's no traffic. This isn't specific to me, but pretty much everyone in Ireland. And the UK, apparently. But traffic lights on roads might as well not be there for me. It wasn't until I moved to Germany and had a bunch of angry German grannies shouting at me for crossing the road without waiting for the green man. I've never been as confused about receiving a bollocking in my life. Story 109. I switch hands when using utensils. If I'm just using my fork, I'll use my right hand. When cutting food, I hold my fork with my left and hold my knife with my right. Never knew I did that until someone asked if I was left-handed. Now I'm self-conscious about it. I just find I have better control this way. Story 110. I eat sandwiches in a circle, like around the edges first and gradually working my way to the center. Apparently my grandmother does this too. My dad claims we are the only two people he has even known to do this. Story 111. When you eat ants, is that sharp stabbing sensation, the ant biting your tongue or the formic acid? You eat ants? No. Actually, at no point did I think this was normal, but still. Story 112. When I eat off of a utensil, I scrape my teeth on it as it leaves my mouth. Apparently, for quiet dinners with my SO, it became annoying to hear repeatedly, but I thought I was the only one who could hear it. Story 113. Not a habit, but an annual event that I thought was normal. My relatives get together on New Year's and we play cards and stuff, which involves gambling tiny amounts of our New Year's money. When school started this particular year, after New Year's break, we were given an assignment to write a newspaper-like article of an highlight event during our break. I wrote about how I won X amounts of money against my great-uncle playing cards. 'Cause fudge yeah for a 10-year-old to get $2 more than when she started. Highlight of the fudge year. This assignment was posted on the classroom wall for open house, which my mother came to. And to my fudge surprise, I got yelled at when we went home, because apparently gambling in Japan is illegal, and it was supposed to be hush-hush. Grandparents laughed their jerk off. Mom was worried for about a day if the teacher decided to say anything about it. She didn't. Story 114. Eating all my meat with ketchup. Steak, I eat it with ketchup. Grilled fish, I eat it with ketchup. Rotisserie chicken, I eat it with ketchup. It wasn't until I got to college and my friends were horrified the first time I ate my salmon with ketchup at lunch. Maybe it's a Southern thing? Or is my family just weird? Story 115. I can't poop in public or at another person's house. Only at my own, my boyfriend's, and his parents'. If it's really an emergency, I'll make an exception for another friend's house. But that's only happened twice in my life. I'm okay with hotels, if I stay long enough. Otherwise, I avoid pooping in public bathrooms. You'll never catch me at a mall or store pooping. Story 116. I hum or mumble little made-up tunes to myself. It can be during an awkward silence or when I'm just walking by myself. My friend pointed this out to me, and I've been painfully aware of it ever since. Story 117. I hold pencils in a weird way. I remember people asking why I hold pencils like that, and then giving me a full course on pencil holding 101. Story 118. There are some food things I always thought were normal, but that my friends in junior high thought were weird. For context, we had just moved from the West Coast to the Northeast. My mom cooked corn on the cob, cabbage, and hot dogs by boiling them. We would eat turkey patties, without buns or anything, as the main entree for supper sometimes. We like to have nice French bread, Italian bread, or rolls with dinner, served with margarine. This last one boggled the minds of my friends. One of them asked, in a confused voice, "Do you eat bread with, like, every meal?" The whole idea of turkey burger disgusted them. And I don't know how you would cook hot dogs, indoors that is, aside from boiling them. Story 119. Once I was getting dressed with a friend in the room. She said I put my pants on like a guy because I sit down to put the legs in and then stand and pull them up. Still not sure if I get dressed like a guy or if my friend is just crazy. Story 120. Jiggling my leg up and down rapidly. One if my coworkers asked if I could stop doing it, as it was making her monitor wiggle from across the hallway. I said sure, and I guess I started it up again without realizing. She kept getting pissy about it. I noticed that I could concentrate much better if I was bouncing my leg up and down. If I didn't, then I got sleepy. She tried telling my manager about it, and my manager asked me if I could stop it. I told her no, and if need be, I can probably get a doctor's note classifying it as restless leg syndrome or something, and she just said that's not necessary. Story 121. I have this very strange habit of smelling everything. My hands, constantly. Random things I pick up, my keys, my wrists, and my watch. I never realized I did until my girlfriend pointed it out, and now it even drives me nuts. Story 122. I can only have the volume on televisions, radios, etc. set to even numbers or divisibles of 5. Same with thermostats with a digital readout. My husband thought it was weird AF when we were dating, but now I see him doing it too. Story 123. That when I'm having a conversation, I always mimic their accent, laugh, and how they talk. It really annoys the hell out of me. Story 124. I have a drinking problem. I chug everything I drink. If I focus on slowing down, I can. But the second I am distracted, the drink is empty. Story 125. When I'm listening to music, which is all the time, I can't help but pretend to play the notes with my fingers tapping on whatever surface near. Could be my bag or the side of my phone or my thighs. I play several instruments, so sometimes I interchange between both hands and instruments, playing different parts of the song. For example, I'd pretend I'm playing violin and do the fingers on my thigh. My friend said, I'm restless when I listen to music. I never noticed it's not a thing people do until then. Meanwhile, I'm drumming with my 3 fingers on the back of my phone. Story 126. When someone has left something at my place during a group gathering, I smell it to find out whose it is. I did this once when someone was watching and said that was super weird. Story 127. Not me, but my mate told me today she doesn't suck up noodles pasta, but instead swirls her tongue around and wraps the noodle around it in her mouth. I don't even know how that's supposed to work. Story 128. My friend went to borrow eggs from my fridge and was surprised I put the cracked eggshells back in the carton. There was only 2 eggs left and 10 cracked shells in the carton. To me, it just makes sense. They fit nicely and it's neater, but I guess I'm supposed to throw them out. Story 129. Most people eat with a fork and a knife. In my house, we grew up eating with a spoon, fork, and a knife. Knife to cut, fork to hold things you're cutting. Spoon to scoop, fork to keep things you're scooping from sliding away or to shove food onto your spoon. Apparently, this is not normal. Story 130. I have to poop with a shirt on. I cannot poop without a shirt on. If I'm in the basement without a shirt nearby, I have to go upstairs into my room and go grab a shirt, go back downstairs, and then finally take a shoot. On the contrary, I cannot take a shoot without being completely naked below my belly. I can't just pull my pants down. That doesn't work. Story 131. I eat everything on my plate individually until it's gone before moving on to the next part of the meal. I also don't drink while I eat. Example, drink a bit while I wait for everyone to be served. Eat all the asparagus. Eat all the steak. Eat all the potatoes. Drink whatever drink is left. My girlfriend pointed it out once in front of my family, and they all reacted like, "Oh yeah, he does do that." None of he had any idea until. Story 132. I read books in the shower. I have since I was a little kid. I even have a system for reading multiple books and keeping them dry in the shower. My first serious boyfriend thought it was hilarious and weird. Story 133. Apparently when I read philosophy, I involuntarily, out loud, like I'm expecting someone to inquire about what I'm reading. So, I kind of feel like a pretentious jerk. Story 134. I don't know where to put my hands during idle time. I work in hospitality and have become really proficient using one hand at a time to accomplish typically 2-handed tasks. This is to compensate for a coworker with less than standard work ethic. On one hand, I'll have a glove, and that hand makes food, and the other hand is for everything else, like milkshake making. However, if I'm not multitasking, my idle hand freaks out and just kind of hangs about, aimlessly. And when it was pointed out to me, I've been really self-conscious. Now I hold random things to look more natural. Story 135. I would always have complete conversations with someone in my head if I was thinking about asking something. I would go through, think of the most likely answer, and do that. Never actually talk to the person. I didn't realize most people don't do this until my therapist pointed it out. Story 136. My boyfriend pointed this out when we first started dating. I have trouble keeping eye contact in a conversation in public because I will always look around at what other people are doing and people watch. It's not that I didn't want to give him my full attention. It's just that I like to be really aware of my surroundings. The fact that I studied psychology makes me be interested in human interaction. Story 137. I sit to pee, and I have a male body part. It's just more comfortable. The other day was having a conversation with a group of friends, and it casually came out. Everyone looked at me weird, and I was like, I'm sure I'm not the only one, looking at the guys. Cricket sounds. Story 138. Saying ow for anything even slightly injuring in real life. Mostly due to playing video games with friends where letting others know you're taking damage is important. Story 139. I don't stay in the bathroom when I brush my teeth. I will move around the house or continue watching TV. Everyone would comment on it at uni. Story 140. I moan and whimper in my sleep. The moans apparently sound intimacy. It happens whether or not I'm having an intimacy dream or not. The last time it was pointed out to me, I had been having a dream about being a contestant on Project Runway. Story 141. I eat raw pasta. I didn't realize it was abnormal until I lived with roommates in college, and they witnessed me casually chomping away on sticks of raw spaghetti while I was waiting for the water to boil and lost their darn minds. My mom used to hand me pasta pieces while she was cooking to keep me busy to munch on, and acted like it was super normal, so I never knew it was unusual. The little bite, snap is just weird to people. The bow tie pasta is especially crunchy and really freaks people out. I love it. It'll never stop. Story 142. Eating pizza in layers. First the cheese, then toppings. Next, I scrape off the sauce and finally peel the crust into two parts, the squishy, saucy part and the crispy bottom part. I've always done it but didn't know until my 30s that I'm weird. Well, I always knew I was weird, but not pizza weird. Story 143. When I put on shoes, I put a sock on my right foot, then a shoe on my right foot, followed by a sock, then a shoe on my left foot. Apparently, my friends all put on both socks, followed by both shoes. Story 144. I have double-jointed fingers. The top joint, where the fingertip is, bends down. I can also kind of pop them. I thought everyone could do this. I think I was in junior high before I realized it was an anomaly. Story 145. Only eating 1 or 2 meals a day, and often not snacking in between. It turns out I just have a really small appetite. Story 146. Well, it's not something I thought was normal, more like something I didn't notice. I apparently walk differently than other people. Have more of a bounce? Also, I walk a lot on my toes. Apparently, this is something common on my mom's side of the family, and they call it the Paul Licky walk. Story 147. I'm used to blowing on my spoon before I eat the food on it. Normally, this is with hot soups and pasta straight from the pot, but I did it with ice cream without a second thought. Story 148. I'm a fully grown adult and tie my shoes bunny ears style. Thought it was totally normal, but nope. Apparently, people grow out of that. Story 149. I open doors for ladies. Totally normal to me, but I moved to Japan and now it's just weird. Japanese guys are totally self-centered, so would never do anything extra to help a woman. This is changing in the modern society, but very slowly. I still open doors. I'm not going to start being a douchebag because the people around me are douchebags. Story 150. I thought itchy teeth gums, a scratchy throat, and a slight facial pressure were just things that happen when people ate apples, peaches, pears, plums, and apricots. It took me 13 years to learn that I actually had oral allergies and birch allergies, and that itchy teeth were not normal. Story 151. I yawn really loudly and have weird body spasms when I wake up. Like all my arms and legs shake violently until I'm out of bed. A girl I was dating said it was like a bear waking up from hibernation. Story 152. I've made such a habit of checking my blind spot before I change lanes that I do so regardless of who is driving. Apparently, people think I think they don't know how to drive. Story 153. If someone asks me a question, I explain my answer instead of just saying it and not giving exposition. Story 154. I chew on ice, bite ice cream, and gnaw on popsicles. Basically, I enjoy the slight pain that comes with sinking my teeth into cold stuff. My coworkers cringe whenever they see me doing this. Story 155. Apparently, staying in my school uniform after school isn't normal. I don't understand the point in getting changed if I'm not going out, especially since it means the clothes need to be washed. Sure, the school uniform isn't that comfortable, but I take off my belt, tie, and blazer and untuck my shirt, which are the only real uncomfortable parts. Story 156. In college, I hung out in a pretty large group, so lunches and hangouts could be loud. This would cause some quieter people who wanted to say something to go unheard. I always tried to promote inclusiveness in my group, so if the quieter people made a comment, I would try my best to make it known to them that they were heard, mostly through eye contact, saying an audible, yeah, and a head nod or asking follow-up questions. But if they made a genuinely funny joke, my annoying habit kicked in. I was that guy who would repeat their joke, but louder. I would always try to give credit back to them, though. I would repeat the joke while laughing, and I would point toward them to indicate to the group who originally said it. Deep in my heart, I just wanted their wit to be heard because I enjoyed it. To the outside, I was that guy. I didn't realize it until a friend told me it was annoying and he genuinely thought I was trying to steal the spotlight. Oof, I was much more conscious about it after that conversation. Story 157. Not a habit, but I had rumination syndrome for 26 years before it was pointed out to me that it wasn't normal. Story 158. I used to be a very huggy person. I personally believe physical affection is underappreciated in friends and acquaintances, and the psychological benefits of being hugged are good for everyone. But since some people tend to be uncomfortable with a hug, I resorted to a sort of hand hug. It originated around the time my grandfather had his stroke, and it became his method of saying, "I love you." But I would grab the person's hand and give it a firm hold for a few seconds and let go. My coworker pointed out that my handshake was strange and I had to explain. To me, that small gesture simply means I care about you, and I wish you well without going into risky territory with another person's comfort. A lot of people still honk, it's weird, but I don't care. It'll squeeze your hand all day. Story 159. I said balloon instead of balloon for nearly 20 years. Then my husband pointed it out. After a few years, it still feels awkward to say balloon. Pretty sure I overcompensate now on the balloon. Story 160. Using a towel once before washing it. I asked a few people in the rest of my family, and apparently I'm being wasteful. Story 161. I tie my shoelaces like I would a square knot, with 2 loops on the second crossover, instead of the normal way. Story 162. I eat bananas with a kitchen towel, so I peel it, throw away the peel, and then use the kitchen towel to hold it and don't get my hands dirty. I've always done it like that until last year. I'm 31. My colleagues at work pointed it out to me how stupid it was, and it is. I guess it's one of those habits I've picked up from when I was a child and never really thought of it. Story 163. I always ate my fries first. Every one of my SO that I have had made fun of me once they notice, and I've gotten better but not entirely, and now take a couple bites of the burger or whatever, but still finish the fries first. I did it since I was a kid. When they ask, I say it's because I don't like wasting food, and since fries are horrible reheated, I eat those first, because the main part isn't horrible reheated. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vancher. See you soon.